It's been quite a long road, I guess. I was always aware that there was this weird kind of dichotomy in the world that we actually live in, and then the world that kind of is presented to us, but is also presented to us as the world. That's kind of a real area of interest to me, and the impact that can have on people's well-being, general health, I find really fascinating. When I was younger, I would do things like read magazines or watch films and things, and know that I felt kind of afterwards I would feel like not really as good or not good enough, that my kind of self regard had dipped a bit because I wasn't thin enough, I wasn't doing enough beauty practices, I wasn't my hair wasn't right, whatever reason, whatever kind of thoughts it would kind of bring up in me. And I also could see that wasn't right as well, that there was a problem with that. But at the time, I'm talking 30 years ago, there weren't the words, there wasn't even the vocabulary that we've got now to talk about body image. And certainly there wasn't a platform to do anything about it. And so although there was this kind of sense in me of it being unjust, it being not the way I want to live, I didn't have any support or ways of kind of feeling better about it or supporting myself or changing. Switch to 2017 and I was in a very much different place. So 2012 I was diagnosed with breast cancer, and through the course of that I've had many courses of chemo, and 4 different operations. My body's changed, and what's actually happened is that my body is now changed to the point that I couldn't possibly have a perfect body. I couldn't possibly work out at the gym 7 days a week, twice a day, and eat nothing and get a certain body, because my body is now irrevocably changed, aside from the fact that I'm coming into my mid-40s. It's just not achievable. But what I didn't kind of give enough credit to was that body was never achievable. So I've done a lot of research in this area, and one of the pieces of research that comes out, which is I think really fascinating, is that 95% of women, the media ideal or body ideal is just not achievable. It's just not possible. Even if you did do all of that, you couldn't actually. That we all have different bodies, and what society doesn't mirror is that society kind of gives us this very kind of a one-dimensional view of bodies, in that move more, eat less, and you'll have a body like this, buy this, use this whatever new fitness regime or equipment or whatever, and then you'll get this. And actually that's just not the reality. The reality is that we live in a world full of really diverse bodies. Natural.
And that's the thing though, I think generally people know that, like we do know that, but still it's still ingrained, isn't it? It's like somewhere from that personal point, it still does influence what we do. Like I know that, like growing up, I'm one of 5 sisters, and my sisters are like Love Island hot, couple of them have taken their toll because pregnancy wasn't easy for them, but the reality is that's what they were. But I was always this like chubby one, and it's the messages that you get, and everyone will be like, oh, hello, Mr. Ridden, your daughters are so lovely. And then they look at me, and I felt like I could feel that disappointment. And so these messages, even when you grow up, like, not being funny, logically, we know that we're all different. Like, just look at us, like, we're all so different.
Yeah.
It's that there's still something in us, though, isn't there? That,
yeah.
I wish I could change this, wish I could be like that. If I was like this, then I would be like that.
What we're kind of up against is such a flood of media messages. The statistic was that we see over 500 adverts a day. I think that's now been readjusted, and it's higher than that now. So imagine that's more messages than you get from your parents. That's more messages than you get from your friends. That's more messages that you get from yourself, from any other kind of. It's no wonder that even though we logically know that we've all got diverse bodies and that we're all different, it's no wonder that we are overwhelmed with the concept that we're still not good enough. And it's something that I realized, you know, it takes time. It does take time, and it takes a real mental shift to and this is what really bothers me about this, is that the loss that we experience. So I'm writing a book, and I was researching it this weekend, and it came that the average woman spends 2 full weeks a year beautifying herself. 2 full weeks.
Okay.
That's the average woman. That's 55 minutes a day, and that's not even, you know, reading magazines, looking at, you know, what we're eating. It's not how we feel in our clothes. It's not how we feel about our food. It's not how we feel about, you know, lying on the sofa and looking at our bellies. You know, there is such a lot of energy and time and thoughts, mental weight going into how we feel about our bodies. It will be vastly more than 2 weeks a year, you know, and predominantly, you know, or more affects women than it does affect men. What could we be doing with that time? What else could we be doing? How could we, you know, over the course of a lifetime, you could learn 3 languages in that time.
My gosh. I mean,
I think that's what really is my kind of point of interest, is what we're doing with that time. How can we shift it? How can we, you know, just use it? How can we get the potential out of it?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned that it predominantly affects women and of the body images and stuff like that. But the reality is as well that outside of like the weight issue and like parts of your body, there are some things that you absolutely have no control over. Because even with the diet stuff, you can tell yourself, maybe if I did this and that. But what if you were a guy that's short compared to, do you know what I mean? Everyone else, like you're 5'2" or something. So the ideal is that a man is tall and he's, you know, built. And if you're not that, if you're like really slim, then actually that's always going to kind of play on your mind. If you're, you know, there's all sorts of things. Like if you just don't look right or feel right, or as you're aging, you know, like your bodies change with time. And as life takes its toll on them, that could be anything, you know, that comes across, and it's not always perfect, but accepting that isn't always easy. It's almost like you change right in front of you, but you didn't ask for this change. You didn't want this change. I don't know where your thoughts or anyone's thoughts are about that.
It feels, and sort of similar to me, you know, coming around from the anaesthetic and I've lost parts of my body. You know, it's like, what? I didn't agree to this. How do you kind of assimilate it and kind of accept it into your life? And I guess, I mean, the course that I run, the body quality, body image awareness course, addresses all of this and addresses, you know, the process of accepting bodies the way that they are. I think it helps to surround yourself with other people who are doing it, rather than, you know, looking at your social media, seeing who could be more inspiring in this area. But also, just going back to the point before about it being, you know, a woman's issue, it's starting to grow quite a lot amongst men, and it's kind of coming alongside the male grooming market, where men are being targeted more in the way that women always have been targeted. I think the statistics now is it's something like 91% of women are dissatisfied with their body, and 40-something% of, it's still a lot, you know, it's still a lot of people. So I think the acceptance thing is it's something that we have to kind of go within ourselves, and we have to keep doing it. It's not something that you learn and you've learned it and that's that done. It's something that we have to keep coming back to and returning to. And then these thoughts creep up, and even having thoughts about other people's bodies and conversations about other people's bodies, or comments or critique or judgment or whatever, is an opportunity for us to catch ourselves and go, oh, hang on, that's me coming from an idealized perfectionist kind of viewpoint, and that's not based in reality.
So flipping it on the other side, and we had a conversation about this, and this makes me absolutely gag. And feel free to ask questions and stuff on chat, by the way, and tell me what you think. But there's kind of messages where just look at yourself in the mirror and say, I love you, arm, or I love you, leg. Do you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't feel real. And I know you can fake it till you make it, but that's a lot of faking that.
Yeah, we talked about this as well. One of the guys had mentioned that, you know, accepting yourself doesn't mean loving each and every part of your body, doesn't even mean loving your body. And I totally get what you mean there, Una, as well, because it does just feel so trite and kind of, you know, nonsense. Oh, I love my body. Oh, my body, whatever. But what the process that I come at it from is when I do have a thought like that, or even when I am just looking in the mirror, but when I do have a thought like that crops up like that, I remind myself about the potential of my body. And especially, I mean, not everyone's been through cancer. Not everybody has experienced a level of loyalty from their body in the way that I have. So I would feel, you know, a bit of a kind of, you know, not that kind of gracious to be continuing to criticize it and judge it and put it down. It's been through so much with me. I've asked for, you know, the world on a plate from it. You know, it's healed each and every time that it's been under the knife or, you know, subject to chemo. It just knits itself back together so coolly. I fell over really badly at the beginning of lockdown, scrawped the whole of this side of my body, and it's just, I find it fascinating. I know that's a bit weird, but just like watching it knit itself back together. I also broke my phone in the process, and my phone hasn't knitted itself back together. My phone is very much broken. So I think it's not necessarily about, like, you know, love and unicorns and loving our body and rainbows and butterflies. It's about realizing just the very many processes that are going on in our bodies constantly, day and night, that they provide for us. I mean, they're everything. If we haven't got them, we're nothing without them. And so maybe we could shift the dialogue inside our minds to give them a bit more respect and a bit more gratitude. And maybe love's a hard push.
And maybe even some compassion, to be honest, because we put so much pressure on our bodies, like, because this is what we show the world, and we beat ourselves up about it if it's not perfect, because it's ruining our experience of the world. So, you know, it's a really tough one, isn't it? It's a really complex, that relationship. Simon's just sent in a comment. So he's saying, maybe there is a difference in how I choose to accept the things I cannot change, such as height. Can I be content with that versus the possibility of what can be potentially, can be changed, such as weight, and how hope can be a factor in that.
That's a really interesting point about hope. Because yeah, I think a lot of people feel resistance to accepting our body, because then if we were to accept it, maybe we wouldn't do the best for it. Maybe we would just kind of turn into, you know, a sofa vegetable or something. I don't know. But one of the things that we talk about on the course is about this guy. He has two scenarios. So every day he gets up, he looks in the mirror, and he feels lacking in some way. And then we put him in another situation where two people are wanting things from him, and the first person is really wanting help, and the first person is like really judgmental, really criticizing, putting him down. Come on, you're not doing enough, you're not doing well enough, and all the rest of it. And then there's this other person who is really encouraging, really helpful, does as much as they can to help, and supportive, kind words, all the rest of it. Which one of those people are you going to help the most? Are you going to help the one who's criticizing you and you know, putting you down all the time? Or are you going to want to help the one that's actually on your side and the one that's encouraging you? And, you know, it's a flip in the brain, but it doesn't mean to say that you have to let go of all the hopes and all of the plans and all of the ideas that you had about you and your body. Yeah. People are worried about that.
We've got a question, well, a raised hand from Galaxy S10e. Sorry, you know, go for it.
Hi, my name is Nkiru. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, someone sent in a comment about mind over body and things like that. To some extent, it depends. Your mind is what gets you to where you need to be. Emmy, I used to be like you, but after 4 children, this is me presently, right now. And the pandemic is not helping things, because having to sit down at home, one gets to eat a lot and do things like that. There are days I've woken up and I've said to myself, oh, I don't like my body because I've got big tummy after childbirth and all that. But the main thing is I'm alive and well, and I believe that's the most important thing. I was video calling with my auntie in Nigeria yesterday, and she said to me, "Oh, chubby cheeks, chubby arms, chubby this." I said, "Yes, auntie, but I am well. There are many who have died in this pandemic, and they cannot even say that they are chubby or slim, but I am well." And she said, "Yeah, oh, okay, you're right. At least you're alive." And I've chosen to like my body. I don't care what anybody has to say about it, because it's serving me well for now. I'm not telling you that I love it 100% because I would like to lose some weight in some places. But all the same, I am very, very happy, which is more important. And considering the fact that there are many people my age who, or even younger than me, let me say younger than me, that are twice my size. So at times I tend to look at others and check myself. Oh, okay, you're not doing bad the way you are right now. So your mind, you have to have it in your mind as well that, and the thing about age and things like that, a lot of people keep forgetting that they're getting older. They still want to remain the way they were 20 years ago, which is not possible. I started getting that into my head when I started adding in different places. And someone commented about age, and I went and I read about it. It shows that when you get to a certain age, you do not burn a lot of things. You need to change diet, you need to change your lifestyle and things like that. And no matter how much we try, we still pile on some of those weight. Carbohydrates, you need to lose it, you need to go to the gym. Not everybody has that ability to burn fat, to burn things like that and get to where you need to be. So I've just come to the realization that I can only do what I can do. A lot of people do extra and they cause themselves more harm trying to get to where they want to be. It's either you love me for who I am, the way I am, or you don't. But the most important thing is I love me the way I am. And if you don't, well, you're lost.
Right. Well, it's a great attitude to have.
Yeah. No, that is. Thank you for sharing. We've got a question as well from Steve. So he asks you, what are your views on the mind-body connection?
Hi, Steve. So my day job is I work as a body massage therapist. So and I see firsthand how many people are really dissatisfied with their body. Almost everybody that gets on my couch apologizes for their body. But the mind-body connection, I think, is absolutely fascinating, is very much a real thing. You know, the two are so symbiotic. They can't really, you know, to try and look at our bodies and not include the mind in that process is again just such a one-dimensional approach to it. There are so many different factors influencing what might impact how our bodies present to the outside world. I think you have to start in the mind. I don't think there's any point in starting anywhere else. And certainly, you know, the statistics that come out of, you know, slimming clubs and diets and all the rest of it, they just don't work. And the reason is because people are not addressing the underlying issue of what's going on there. They're trying to do something physical without going deeper.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. I think we're at our break out room session. So we've got a question for you. It's been fantastic actually talking, because hopefully these conversations can continue in the smaller rooms. But just want to share the question for you today is this. Just bear with me. I'm absolutely garbage at sharing. So from current slide, not this one. So the questions for you to think about when you go into your breakout rooms, which I will put you in a bit, is how much time over the last week, month, year, or even lifetime have you spent thinking about your body negatively? And the second question is how much time do you want to dedicate in the future to spend thinking about your body negatively? Please note these questions down, because the slides don't go into your breakout rooms. And also, if I put it on broadcast, you won't always see the message, or it goes away really quickly. So if you've got a pen handy, or you can just remember that, just remember those two questions. How much time over the last week, month, year, or even lifetime have you spent thinking about your body negatively? And B, how much time do you want to dedicate in the future to spend thinking about your body negatively? So how much time now and how much time in the future? Don't forget that before you start your discussions, nominate a person that will summarize the group's thoughts at the end of the session. Okay, so has everyone got that? Because it will go in 3, 2, 1. So I'm going to put you in breakout rooms. It will be for about 14 minutes, 14 to 15 minutes. Please join when you get the message, and then when time is up, the breakout room will give you a notification of 60 seconds, and you'll be kicked out of the breakout room from there. So you don't have to actually come back into the main room until time ends. So any questions before we go into the breakout rooms? Okay, cool. There we go. I thought I'd lost the breakout rooms thing. Right. Right, folks. So don't forget, how much time have you spent thinking about your body negatively, and how much do you want to spend in the future? And we'll see you soon.
Trying to do as much as we can not to, but it is very difficult in these trying times. Obviously, in the future, we don't want to dwell on it. As you know, we'd rather not spend any time on thinking about negative body image. But it is a natural human thing to do because of what we're surrounded by. And we felt that it was really important that we gave ourselves kindness and not beat ourselves up over the fact that we are doing that. So that's our group discussion primarily. I don't know if either of the others want to chip in on if I missed anything.
Yeah, all good. And these are fair points, to be fair, aren't they? I mean, I wondered about the second question, like, do we think about it or not? And why don't we think about it, but in a positive way, like how to look after it and stuff. But anyway, it's just something to think about. What about group 2? Or whoever group 2 is. I'm not going to lie, I don't know who group 2 is. Go for it.
That was us. So we had the pleasure of Emmy in our group and Bernie. So Bernie and I work together, so it was quite nice that we actually know we've gone through the whole trying to lose weight together at work. So that was quite nice to share that with Emmy. So what's very similar to what Steve said, we're completely out of our routine at the moment. So like Bernie was saying, you used to take in lunches at work and plan everything. That doesn't work now because we're not actually going to work. So it's definitely we're struggling with in terms of we're not in our routine, so we're kind of eating, and we're eating it because we feel like it's the highlight of the week. So all these nice things to eat that we shouldn't be eating are a coping strategy. So it's like a coping mechanism because we're all a bit more stressed out. So we're doing it as part of our mental health actually to make ourselves feel better. So so that's how we looked at it, and social media doesn't help the celebs. How can they lose weight after having their children, and why can't we? And how do they, you know, look? So what we're not understanding is what have they got that we haven't got. They've got a lot of money in terms of PTs and a lot more things that they're privileged to that we're not. And family pressures as well. So, you know, and I was saying to them how I was on holiday in February, and one of my husband's aunts, as I greeted her, she said to me, "Oh, you look healthy." That was a nice way of saying it. 2 days later, she said, "Oh, yes, you have put on a lot of weight." I was just like, you know, so those things that you're kind of thinking, you know, people just don't realise that those feelings hurt. And how does she know that what I've tried and what I haven't tried and what I've failed at, what I haven't? So there's all those, and at the moment the family event is eating, because we're making it into a family event. Like Emmy said, is that, you know, she did come dine with me as well. So you put loads of things into preparing nice meals. Sometimes they're healthy, sometimes they're not. Yeah, so that's a big change. Are we going to want to stop thinking about it in the near future? Definitely. So the second question that was, yeah, we want to stop thinking about it, basically.
Yeah, it's interesting though that you mentioned the celebration around food. I think that kind of goes beyond every culture. Like, it's one of those universal things that if we want to celebrate, there will always be food. If you provide food, people will always be happy, you know, honestly. And if you don't provide food, then it's almost like you've taken away from their experience. Do you know what I mean? And let's be honest, as much as we kind of say that, a Malteser always tastes better than, I don't know, an apple. So it is kind of hard, and it is hard to kind of take that pleasure element and social element away from it, and to be healthy, I suppose. Which takes me to group 3, whoever you are. Hello? Anyone from group 3? Or just basically anyone that's nominated?
I think we must be group 3, but I can't remember what number we are. So, so I think just going back to the actual questions in terms of what they were asking, I think one of the ways we interpreted the initial question about how much time, one example was that maybe, you know, 2 hours per day was an example of feeling negative, maybe as a teenager, but now with the busyness of life, it might be a few minutes. But I think one of the things that we kind of discussed a bit further around that is whether it's a question of the actual quantity of minutes per day versus the actual quality of what we feel in that time. So, you know, I could get off the scales in the bathroom this morning and I'm scratching my head and really angry with myself, having put on 6 kilograms, and I feel like I'm going to be a waste of time for the whole day, very sort of pent up, versus the hairs on the back of my hand. I don't know how you feel about the hairs on the back of my hand sort of thing, but I'm seeing them all day as I'm typing. It's a very low level thing, but its quantity of time is probably a lot longer. But it's that negative emotive strength of the feeling getting off the scales in the morning, which is far more devastating, I think. Maybe it's more about the quality. I think some other things that we kind of said is about the difference about what reality is and whether we're overthinking things. And I think some of the things that have already been said about society, you know, society tells us that this phone that you just got a couple of months ago, actually, you're behind the curve. You're a waste of time. You need a new model. Then you'll be happier in life. Then you'll be more successful. And, you know, whether with social media we do that ourselves, you know, if we put a photograph of ourselves on social media, we generally are probably going to put a positive, you know, look at me, it's a good situation sort of thing, because I'm looking for, in self-advertising, affirmation back that people say, yes, you're looking good today, Simon, you know, like the hat, all of those sort of things, to again, maybe be a comparative relationship thing. So those are maybe some of the things that we kind of came up with.
Yeah, no, sound fair, to be honest. And it is that thing, like if you put yourself on social media and you get comments, like normally you get like 90% really positive comments, but there's always like 1 or 2 that are not very nice, or they're blatantly trolling, but somehow they're the comments you remember from the whole thing. and actually that becomes what you remember of the whole event, of posting yourself on, or, you know, for whatever reason. So yeah, no, I hear you on that, which takes me to the last group, or the last person to summarize. Reveal
Hi.
yourself.
Hi.
Stephanie.
Hi, I was with Azorta and Patricia in our group. So we were discussing, so the stance we were looking at was looking at how much we think about it, and we all think about our body images obsessively, daily, a lot of the time. And we looked at the fact that we feel conditioned, we feel very much conditioned by the media, whether that's from when we were, you know, earlier on in our lives, looking at magazines, what's on TV, and appropriating ourselves to that kind of, you know, that's what good looks like, and almost the, you know, looking at privilege and shame, you know, pretty privilege, fat, you know, skinny privilege, and if you are slim and pretty, that's attributed to success. So yeah, so we all said that most of the time we feel really low, to the point where somebody in the group said that it's almost stopped them from going out at times, because they felt so stifled, and, you know, they were stuck in the moment. And then what do you do to make yourself feel better? You eat, you know, then that's seen as a reward because it's comforting. So then you're stuck in the cycle, and then you also almost go above and beyond. You know, you go to the gym, you work out, and then the days you don't go out, you feel really ashamed of yourself, you feel the guilt, so again you eat. You know, it's a cycle of hell. How would we like to feel going forward, and how would we like to think of it negatively? Ultimately, we wouldn't like to think of it at all, but it would be nice to think, okay, yeah, it is what it is, and have that level of acceptance. I'd like to be able to, personally for me, I'd like to be able to accept what I have and just crack on, instead of being stuck in this rut all the time of, oh, you don't look good enough today, your hair doesn't look good, and that kind of thing. Yeah, and that was it really. I don't know if anybody in the group wanted to elaborate on that. Azorta or Patricia?
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing, everybody. Do you know, honestly, I'd love to be able to say that today's session was, you know, going to be that game changer time, and we're going to get off and we're going to start appreciating our bodies. And we might be positive and motivated until like the next time. But I really do hope that actually we are kind of mindful, and it isn't just about being grateful, it's about being compassionate, because these bodies are our bodies, and they're not meant to be everything. They're not meant to validate us. They're just there to help us actually be present in this physical world. I wish I could believe my own words, but I'm not going to lie to you. Until the next time. So just before we kind of finish off, Emmy, is it okay to talk to us about your advanced course tester and how people can join and what that's about?
Yeah, absolutely, because it draws on all of these points, and one of the conversations that we had in our breakout room is, well, what do we do? And I think the problem is, as with so many things with mental health, we don't make it an interest. If we make it a hobby, if we make it an interest, if we dedicate a bit of time to it, when we see things changing. So, you know, you wouldn't expect to be able to speak Chinese and then really want to speak Chinese and then be able to speak Chinese, because it doesn't work like that. What happens is that you have to take a little bit of Chinese and repeat it a bit and get to know it in your brain. And there is the equivalent of that in this as well. There's loads of books, there's loads of films. I've developed a new body image awareness program for the workplace. I know that you are already going to be one of the advanced testers for it, but basically I'm looking for people who would be willing to come along and you know, be a tester, experience the program, absorb the information. One of the great things is that once you have absorbed this information, even after just today, after this meeting, you can't now unknow what we've talked about. And so I'm hoping that it will start to filter through into your thoughts over the next few hours, days, weeks, whatever. and then you have the opportunity to build on that if you want to learn more about it. But it is something that you can develop. It's not like an impossible, far away thing that doesn't exist. It does exist, and it's really actually lovely to get there. I think what we need to do is be focusing more on valuing ourselves in other ways, because there are so many ways that we are valuable that don't include our bodies. Also, in this Mental Health Awareness Week, we need to be thinking about whether we're talking to ourselves kindly. Some of the kindest people in the world will speak to themselves with just utter criticism and judgment. And that's a really important point to make. So anyway, my website is bodequality.com. So it's the word equality with bod at the beginning. And you can register there to become a tester if you'd like to.
Fab. And I'll send those details when I send the audio out. And actually, you've got the website already because it was on the diary appointment thing that I sent out. But please, thank you so much for joining. Please do look after yourself. If, at any point you're struggling for whatever reason, remember that there are loads of places. Like, you might feel like, nah, I'll be okay, and just push yourself forward. But the reality is that the more you do that, the worse it becomes. So there's a whole load of organizations that you can contact via Time to Change website, Mind Info Line. Hub of Hope will give you information of what's in your local area. And also, remember that if you have access to your employee assistance programs, that's 24 hours, and that's the best thing that you can go to. It's also worth checking if your employee assistance program allows for family and friends, because a lot of them do now. So do check that out, just in case anyone that you know or a loved one is struggling. And what I will do is send everything on. So thank you so much, Emmy. You have been fantastic. Loads of stuff to think about. And hope you continue to join us, because we're going to be back in fortnight with Catherine Onion from Kirklees Council. And we're going to explore the concept of vulnerability, because let's face it, in lockdown, vulnerability means having a physical condition or something that will, you're not meant to come in contact with anyone because you're at high risk of catching coronavirus or COVID-19. But actually, because everyone is focusing on the physical conditions and thinking about returning to work, what about people who are vulnerable with mental health conditions? They might be physically okay to be near someone, but the anxiety or the mental health problems are flaring up and making it kind of impossible, making them really vulnerable, puts them at risk a little bit later on. So we're just going to discuss the concept around that, and Catherine's going to bring her story. So hopefully you guys can make it. If not, no drama. I will be sending the audio on after the session. So thank you all. Round of applause to all of you, and to Emmy today. And you can now resume your lives.